Welcome in. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark jumping here with us on your Thursday morning. Appreciate, again, Monkel Goodwine hanging out with us in the last hour on the Garnet Trust Hour. If you missed any of that conversation, you can always go back and watch on the Game TV, live on YouTube, sponsored by our friends at Shepherd's Glass and powered by our friends over at Integrated Media. Great conversation. Monkel, very natural behind the microphone. We didn't even ask him if he had ever done anything like this before, but a lot of good insight from him, and he's obviously somebody that we're going to be expecting quite a bit out of this fall, and a very loaded defensive line room.
I want to get into Monkel as a player, but the human interest element has overwhelmed me. I got to listen to a good bit, but I had a phone call or two on the way in. Were there any Nick Saban stories?
He confirmed he was a jokester, didn't give out the specific jokes.
Well, we know... We know one that Saban's fond of. We will not.
We know about that one. I was not a specific story, though. He said he could sit in here and talk all day about Saban. He did say the one time he yelled at him, though, or chewed him out when he messed something up.
Just once?
Just once.
Well, I think it was I think the amount in which he yelled at him was a little bit more than your typical one. He's like, it got to the point that I was just embarrassed. Like, I was being yelled at in front of all my teammates. But I tell you, that kid has a great mindset about him.
Sure.
He's like, but then I started thinking, man, I'm getting yelled at by Nick Saban. This is pretty cool.
It's like it's a badge of honor.
Mama, I made it. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is, though.
So he was in the room when Saban he made it sound like he was in the room. I should have asked because he made it sound like he was in the room.
So I went back and looked. So he committed to South Carolina on January the 7th. And Saban officially retired, I believe, 2 to 3 days later. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a meeting a couple days before, because the playoff game was on January 1st, a few days before that. So maybe that was a meeting that was before the one we knew about the day that Saban actually retired, because the day he did retire, there was a team meeting, and then all the news came flooding out about him retiring. So maybe there was one a little beforehand that nobody said anything about at that point in time. Just my best guess. I don't know.
Or was he still there?
Maybe he was still there, and I don't know.
If he would have retired to the team, it would have come out.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know how that works as far as committing to a place and still being on campus at the other place, or the specifics of that necessarily.
Yeah, because when he first started talking, I thought he was telling us like what his teammates had told us about the meeting. But then it seemed very apparent he was in the room. And I was like, is that a stupid question for me to ask? Wait, you were there?
Yeah.
Then I wish I had. But either way, he said, either by him being there or from his teammates, sounded like he was there. He said that it was like you could hear a pin drop when Saban said he was retiring.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Like, this guy's seen some. Like, he's going to look back on his college career, and I know he came to South Carolina hoping to get in the mix for playing time and all that. So hopefully his memories also are going to include making some big plays at South Carolina. But he's going to look back and be like, man, I played for the GOAT, and I was played for him the year he retired. That's going to be something you tell your grandkids, I feel like.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, to get to Monkel as a player, I think you and I are kind of on the same page with this, Wes, where you go, all right, here's this kid who was a top, I think he was, his On3 industry ranking, which again is the weighted average of all the major recruiting services, had him as like a top 70 player. This is a big-time prospect out of that talent-rich DMV area that South Carolina typically mines, but Alabama has been a huge factor there for years. I mean, they've signed a lot of players from that area that have gone on and been quite successful for them, and so he was one of the latest. But you get to Bama, they play guys early if they're ready, but you also got to know when you sign with Bama, you may not necessarily, a lot of times you're going to have guys in front of you that were former 4 stars, former 5 stars, big-time prospects. And that's kind of the category he fell into, where during his time at Alabama, he had not factored in on the field. But a couple things, like you said, Wes, he played for the GOAT. So he obviously was very well coached. He obviously played against great competition in practice every single day and got a look at that process that has, the whole built by Bama thing. I mean, there's evidence behind that. They produce guys. And so I think that really, really helped him where when he gets to South Carolina, you're not seeing anything. I'm sure they do some things differently, but it's not like you go to practice in the SEC and have any sort of shock factor. That's just kind of business as usual. He's used to it. And you got a guy that, yeah, he hadn't played a lot, but he's got a lot of talent. He's seen it. And obviously from what we've seen and heard so far, he's matched up quite well, and heck, we saw it in the spring game. He looks the part.
Well, and even before we got to see him in action in the spring game, the level of expectation of a guy like that coming from a program like Alabama, being a highly recruited guy like he was coming out of high school, people are going to expect a lot out of him this fall. And again, in the little sample size that we've seen, so far so good. But people, you get that Bama sticker put on you, people expect big things out of you, and we certainly hope that happens this fall as well.
And I think something that stood out to me too, guys, is just sort of like we're talking about with him sort of having the realization of, I'm getting yelled at by Nick Saban, as opposed to like, oh man, coach is yelling at me. Like, he has some perspective, I think is the way to say it. And so for him, when he was talking about entering the South Carolina D-line room, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, I have to come in here and start. He was talking. I mean, I don't know if you heard the part, Chris, where he was talking about Tonka and Boogie and those guys and just how good they've been to him in terms of welcoming him into the room. He's like, man, they're good. No, they're great guys. Like, just the amount of people that have welcomed him into the program, I think has stood out to him. But he's like, man, I want to be able to come in here and help provide some depth to this room. So I think just the communication piece, like, we talked about it with Beamer earlier this week, and then we talked about on the show how important it is for players in order to keep them happy, for them to know their role and expected role within the team, within the program. And so I think he's a guy we've talked about. If you can play this year and help the D-line this year, then all of a sudden you go into next year, and if you're a good one, you look around and you're like, I'm a starter more than likely when you look at how upperclassmen laden that defensive line group is.
And he only has, is it the 2 years of eligibility? Because he came in 21, so he wouldn't have the COVID year.
It should be 2 years for him. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think 2 years for like TJ Sanders. The rest of those guys, like, there's a lot of true, like, actual seniors on this team at that position.
But TJ Sanders, man, if he has the kind of year that you think he could have, I mean,
yeah,
this is his 21, 22, this is his fourth year in the program. So, yeah, he has more time, but he's going to be looking at that thing going,
well, you want to talk about off-season priorities for South Carolina?
That's number one on the list.
Right. And it has been because this is not one that, like, snuck up on you. Like, you could kind of see this, and that's why, like, getting DeAndre Jules out of the portal, I think, was a very important add, because one of your top priorities, okay, let's bolster this front seven. So Jules made sense as an acquisition. He was a pretty high priority guy out of the portal when you look at the other schools that chased him. You had Florida, some others. Pick South Carolina. That was a big get because he can help you, but he has 1 year. He's a graduate. He's one and done. That's where Goodwine becomes as sneaky a get as a former top 100 Bama player can be in the portal. It still kind of flew under the radar somehow, and maybe because he didn't get here with, okay, this guy, started 30 games at Bama or something like that. I think it would be talked about more. That's a really, really important get. Maybe for this year, like, he'll probably give you something this year, but even more so, like you said, Wes, down the road next year, because you look at the amount of guys, the amount of experience and snaps and talent that South Carolina is definitely going to lose. And then when you factor in somebody like Sanders, you could lose after the year.
Well, and looking at this season alone, all these guys are going to have the ability to get on the field, and you're just going to have a deeper rotation of guys to be able to intermix on that defensive line. And again, we saw a little bit of that rotation this past Saturday, split between the two teams, obviously, but you're just so deep at this position, so experienced. And yes, Goodwine hasn't played a lot of college football, but he's been ingrained in a great system like Alabama for several years. That's going to prove to be hopefully very beneficial into what he's going to be bringing to the table this year as well.
My other little just kind of, I always try to listen to the little things the guys maybe say in passing. Torselli Simpkins. That is the
third.
The third. That is at least the second defensive lineman, because I think Boogie called out Torricelli in terms of, man, I like going up against this guy in his press conference and, like, the official ones that the media relations guys do. And then he just brought him up as well. So is Simpkins pushing for a starting role? I don't know if he's going to get one, but it certainly seems like he is pushing for one, which would make me very, very happy, because when they signed him, I was like, man, this guy's going to push for a starting role. And people on Twitter told me I was wrong.
That Well, you can go back and get your ask for your flowers if that happens. But that's a good, if you bring in a guy from the portal that has been a starter at another place, really, there's some instances where you bring in a guy from the portal even for the future. Goodwine's a little bit in that category. He's a little bit more for the future, but he's probably going to help this year, maybe even more than we thought. But you look at the numbers at defensive tackle. Normally, when you take a guy with like a couple years of playing experience at least, or he's been a starter even at a smaller level, you're bringing him in to do one of two things: start or push your starters. And when you hear Simpkins is doing that, throw in Kamar Bell, right, from FAU on the offensive line, those guys have either taken first-team reps or they're pushing guys. They've been with the ones. They've been mixed in with the ones. They're with the twos. That's what you want to see. And so Shane Beamer's talked about that too. Like, they feel like they hit on the freshman class. They feel like they hit on these transfer portal guys as well. So that's your goal. And early returns on Monkel, to go back to him, looks like they've hit on him too from everything we've seen and heard.
He was also very honest about the number of sacks that he got in the spring game. He agrees with the one that he was credited with, as opposed to maybe like what Boogie was trying to get Coach Beamer to maybe add a few more to his. If we get Boogie in here, now Boogie is like a serial, like, I'm going to, it happened last spring game, I think it was. Remember, because SEC Network was doing so. Remember, he was mic'd up so you could hear him on the SEC. I think they did like a SEC Inside thing on it. And, I mean, he was at every play. Every play.
He was also very active on that special, the Welcome Home ESPN.
That's the one I'm thinking of. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Was that last year or was that 2 years? Boogie's been on the I got a sack train for
We
for
asked
a while.
Boogie how many career practice sacks he has. It'd be like 400.
We love you, Boogie.
I was going to say, according to him, he probably had about 10 the other night.
Yeah, at least 10.
Well, Dylan Stewart said the defense as a whole had 12. So
That's
Goodness.
that's something we didn't get asked him about, was Dylan Stewart.
yeah,
Well, he looked the part on Saturday.
Next time.
We'll say that
Next
much.
time.
next time. He
Well-
said, by the way, he did say next time he has an opportunity to join us at Firehouse Subs
He will not pass that up.
that he wants to be there.
Well, and in a minute I'm going to talk a little bit more about Firehouse Subs, but he gave us his favorite too, from what I heard.
Jerk chicken.
Now, the jerk turkey or the spicy Cajun chicken?
Was it spicy Cajun chicken?
I think he was trying to remember exactly what
I
it
think
was
we may have
called.
combined
We
those
combined
two.
the
You can do that.
You can do that.
If you told them, I want the spicy Cajun chicken, add jerk turkey, they'll do it for you.
In fact,
you can customize it.
I'm going to let Chris tell you about Firehouse Subs here in just a second. We're going to play an impromptu game of buy or sell coming up next, because it is NFL Draft Day. We've got one Gamecock that might be going in the first round tonight. That's coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
We had a couple subs mentioned there by our guy, Monkel Goodwine. I think he might have customized a sub there. The spicy Cajun
created his
chicken.
own.
The create your own. You can do that. You can even get cold subs. You can get hot subs. You can get a catering platter. You can get one of your Firehouse Subs favorite. You can get the new barbecue Cuban, which is Southern roots for the Cuban twist. It's outstanding. Or you can just make your own. The spicy Cajun chicken was mentioned. The Jamaican jerk turkey was mentioned. I've had both of those. They're both outstanding. Get any of your Firehouse Subs favorites today. Lunch, dinner, catering, whatever you need, by going to firehousesubs.com or downloading the Firehouse Subs app. You can earn yourself some rewards toward future purchases. And when you use the Rapid Rescue to go, you can avoid the wait. Order online, and your whole order will be waiting on you when you get into the store. 14 Midlands locations. Get it now at firehousesubs.com or the Firehouse Subs app.
Welcome back in. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark along with you on this Thursday draft day. NFL draft first round coming up tonight, 8 o'clock, ESPN, ABC, NFL Network, all the channels, probably Nickelodeon as well for all we know. But first 32 picks going to be selected tonight. Of course, a lot of Gamecocks eligible for the draft, but one with a shot of getting picked tonight is Xavier Leggett. And I feel like today's the perfect opportunity to play our favorite game. That is buy or sell. So the question is, buy or sell does Xavier Legette get his name called tonight in the first round of the NFL draft? We'll start with Wes.
Oh, man, I want to be wrong. I'm going to sell the – I don't have reasons.
I think you have some selfish reasons, actually.
That's just my gut feel. What, that he goes to the Panthers?
Yes.
No. I wouldn't wish that on him.
Now, the Panthers have, according to Xavier Legette, said, if you're there at 33, we will pick you. So if he drops in the second round, he is more likely than not going to be a Panther.
Well, the new head coach for the Panthers, Dave Canales, did I pronounce it right?
Yes.
The new.
Big Panthers fan. Yeah, the new. We cycle through him like every year. He's going to win probably, I don't know, at least 5 straight Super Bowls for the Panthers, obviously.
Of course. Well, hey.
Especially if he gets Xavier Legette.
Listen, every coach that gets hired, hey, we got our guy.
Yeah.
He's gonna build a winning culture. He's going to bring this team to heights it's never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, every coach is guaranteed 5 Super Bowls.
That's right. So, Dave Canales, he kind of I think he was asked about the Xavier Legette thing. He's like, that was a little bit more of a hypothetical. Like, that's what it would look like. But he might be just kind of sandbagging a little bit. But I think the Panthers have pick 33 and pick 39. So, right at the beginning of the second round, and then obviously pick 39 is 7, 8 picks in. So, I'm also going to sell. I think Legette does not last long in the second round, though. I don't know if it'll be the Panthers at 33, but I don't think it'll take many picks in the second round. Won't be shocked. It'll be close.
By the way, guys, there's some these mock drafts, and I wish I knew. I know how our media life operates in terms of, like, sometimes you say things and it's truly an opinion. Sometimes you give an opinion because you know something. I wish I knew how much of these mock drafts, like, the people know something and how much of it is just clicks. But there's some talk about him. So PFF, Trevor Sikkema, he's got him going to the 49ers at 31.
Xavier and Debo.
That would be pretty cool. Some of the NFL Network guys, they have him going late in the first round as well. So I think the draft consensus from the guys doing these mock drafts is like very late first or very early second, which makes it a great buy or sell for Tyler over here. But I liked the idea of the Bills, because I think that would be a great situation other than the cold. And, you know, I think for him, the latest chatter I've seen from the Bills has been more like they may move up, or he might not quite be the guy that's going to be selected where the Bills are. Now, if they were to slide back a little bit, maybe that becomes a factor with them. But can you imagine if he goes to the Chiefs?
That'd be phenomenal.
That would be awesome.
That'd be for him. And look, getting drafted in the NFL is getting drafted in the NFL. You're gonna make a lot of money, fulfill your dream of playing pro football. But you know, there's a big difference between going to the organization that just won the Super Bowl and one that would have had the first overall pick had they not traded away a season ago.
It's like 2 picks difference.
Exactly.
1 pick difference, like literally. Yeah, that would be an ideal situation. And you know, Pat Mahomes could definitely get back to the. I'll clean it up. The screw it, Xavier's down there somewhere.
Yes.
Version that he used to have with Tyreek Hill.
And I think about it like this past season, which, by the way, I'm buying. I think he is going to go in the first round.
Oh.
I think about it from this perspective of, like, the Chiefs were able to win a Super Bowl without an effective wide receiver game a season ago. I know Rashee Rice kind of popped off in the playoffs. He's run into his own problems, but they effectively had, like, Travis Kelce and not a whole lot around him.
Patrick Mahomes.
And that was like
and Andy Reid.
And they were still able to win the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
if you get a guy like Legette out there being a true number one, a guy that can go get jump balls down the field, uses athleticism, all that kind of stuff, they're already dangerous. They could be even more dangerous. And I look at the fact this is obviously a very wide receiver heavy class, but a lot of these guys going to be going in the first round. You're going to have, you know, the Cardinals need a wide receiver. The Bills would need a wide receiver, as you talked about. The 49ers looking for somebody. Obviously, the Chiefs going to need somebody as well. I just think so many of these guys are going to go in the first round, and Legette is projected anywhere between that, like, 6th to 7th wide receiver off the board. I think we could see that many go in the first round, and I think he would slide in right there at the very end to a team like the Chiefs.
You convinced me. I changed my mind. You win, Tyler.
What do I win?
Being right.
Okay, I'll take it.
What is your, be more specific, Give us your actual slot.
I think it's the last pick at 32
Okay.
with Chiefs.
That'd be fun.
That'd be a perfect.
I would buy that jersey tomorrow. If he goes to the Chiefs, I will buy that jersey tomorrow.
The white or the red?
Probably the red.
Yeah.
Y'all know what we just learned.
What's that?
Tyler's a jersey guy.
Oh, I love jerseys. I'm a uniform like fanatic.
Who do you have?
I need to stock up a little bit more.
Give us your, a couple. Don't give us if you have 20 in your.
So I still somewhere have my Mike Vick jersey.
Okay.
Somewhere. I got a couple Matt Ryans. I got the throwback one a couple years ago, which I mean, now that he's retired, I guess it's okay to wear, and then it's not in the league anymore. I have several Georgia jerseys, of course.
Got a Kirk Cousins one?
Have not gotten a Kirk. I don't like the new Falcons uniforms, to be honest with you. I think the numbers look goofy and stupid.
All right. Did you, for your Georgia jerseys,
Yeah.
did you do the thing before NIL where you got like a Matt Stafford, like custom jersey from overseas type of thing?
No, I have the ones that are just blank. They have the number and no name on the back of it. So it was like, you could use it year over year and change who it was for. Like I had a Shockley jersey from 05 that became a Gurley jersey a couple years later. And
Very versatile.
Very versatile. Like the Aaron Murray jersey I got in 2013 became a Jake Fromm jersey. Like it worked. You know what I mean? Got to know
Tyler's Twitter handle so you can heckle him over his jerseys.
I know.
Wes, you don't have any jerseys, do you? Do you have some jerseys?
No.
I had embarrassing one. I had a Raymond Felton Bobcats jersey back in the day.
That thing might be worth something.
I doubt it. Not anymore. Not anymore.
Bobcats.
Charlotte Bobcats, baby.
I completely just rejected the idea of the Bobcats.
Yeah.
I was like, no, they're always the Hornets.
Yeah. They changed back. They thought better of it and were eventually like, that was a bad phase of life. Let's change it back.
Well, they're not doing too great as the Hornets right now, so.
They're not. But Leggett, I think, can we buy or sell Spencer at a certain range?
If you want to, sure.
Where's your range?
Buy or sell? Golly, that's tough. Because I would kind of come up with a middle. All right, buy or sell, Spencer Rattler is off the board by the end of the fourth round.
Oh,
that's an easy
absolutely
buy.
Okay. I don't think it's 100% in my mind, but I'm gonna buy as well. I didn't come up with a very good.
Y'all don't think that there's going to be this run of quarterbacks and they're just going to be like, I mean, I could see him going late third, honestly.
Yeah, I can see it too. I think it's going to take that run, but I think for him to definitely go in the fourth round, but I think we're probably going to see that run. It seems like people normally fall in love with quarterbacks, and there's going to be a run on it.
His highest projections have been like mid-70s. That'd fall right in the middle of the third round, which, again, it depends on team needs and who's already drafted what and all that kind of stuff. But I don't see him falling any farther than out of the fourth round.
I don't either. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
But that's not as good as your Leggett one, but
that's okay.
There's a little bit more clarity on where he's going to go because Leggett is almost universal.
Yeah, totally.
First or early second.
Yeah,
It'd be shocking, or very surprising if he went past that.
If Leggett did have to wait till tomorrow night, it's not going to be a long wait. He'll get his name called pretty quickly. Again, very wide receiver heavy draft this year, which, again, first round coming up tonight, and then the rest of the rounds going on through the weekend up there in Detroit. Speaking of this weekend, a lot of Gamecock baseball happening, taking on another tough opponent in the Kentucky Wildcats coming into Founders Park. We will talk with our guy Stuart Lake coming up next about that. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you on your Thursday. Big series coming up this weekend out at Founders Park. 3 games against the Kentucky Wildcats. First one coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage starts at 6:45 here on the game. 4 o'clock first pitch on Saturday and a 2 o'clock first pitch coming up on Sunday. On the call for all those games, of course, will be our guy Stuart Lake, who joins us on the Love Chevrolet phone lines now. Appreciate it as always, Stuart. And another big series for the Gamecocks this weekend. Again, it's been kind of a murderer's row with the schedule so far this year, and it's not going to get any easier after this either. Coach Kingston talked the other day about, you're sitting at 500 in conference play right now. You're not quite over the hump, but you're just right there. What does this team need to do to get themselves regularly winning series against these tough opponents that they have to close out the season?
Well, first of all, this is a really good Kentucky team coming in. I think a lot of us, have kind of pushed them aside a little bit as the year went on. You kept thinking, well, they can't be doing that well the whole way. But, gosh, I'm sitting here, and I started usually on Wednesdays and Thursdays doing my numbers. They actually have a higher batting average in SEC play, 320, than they do overall. They're 293 overall. I haven't seen really anybody this year as we've done this do it. And then they just jump out at you. I mean, they're on base. We're right there near the top of the league at 373 in the league. They're 414. And, the one thing is you say, what are we going to get over the hump? I think it starts this weekend. It'll be interesting to see how we kind of determine. I know Coach Kingston probably let us know today on the pitching order, but this is a huge opportunity this weekend to really, if you could take 2 out of 3 in this one, setting yourself up. Next week's going to be hard. Missouri's always hard when you're on the road. Then you got a really good Georgia team coming here, and then you got to finish out of Tennessee that they may be trying to win the whole championship when we go there, that last weekend. So this weekend is where it starts. I wouldn't try to get too far ahead of take care of business this weekend. If you can win this series, that's a huge boost to kind of getting you over that hump, as you say.
Yeah, and Coach, for all the ups, downs, everything in between of the season, and like you just laid out, it never really ends. Like, it's week to week. You're going to battle somebody that can test you. But South Carolina still sits there, 13 in the RPI. The glass half full way to look at it is everything is still there for the most part to play for. But as we sort of dive into this series itself, you just sort of alluded to the pitching rotation. Do you have a feel yet or an anticipation for what direction we might see Coach Kingston and staff go this week with the pitchers?
Well, I do, but it's really just from last weekend, to be honest, talking to Coach Williams. I think we're going to still see, if Roman's fine, him go Friday, have Eli on Saturday, and then kind of see what they do on Sunday. But they really do want to do Eli in the middle because it just feels like it bridges their bullpen better. And I don't understand that. We've done that before here when you try to, maybe if you're going to be a little bit more in the bullpen on Friday, you get to have an Eli on Saturday that typically gives you that 6 innings, hopefully maybe a little more. But I don't know which way they'll go on those other sides, but I certainly feel like Eli is going to probably end up in the middle again as they did last week.
Coach Chris Clark here. This is a little bit more – it kind of goes off of what Tyler said, but getting a little bit more specific. The Gamecocks have – I want to say it's about 5 losses by 1 run to SEC teams and to Clemson, right? Both of those games were in that series were extremely close. And so Tyler mentioned, getting over the hump against these really, really good teams. If you could boil it down to, hey, South Carolina has to do this one thing better starting this weekend down the stretch. I know it's hard to simplify a game like baseball, but if there's one thing you could point to improve, what would that be?
Well, this is a number that really jumped out at me as I start to put us versus Kentucky. Our runner in scoring position batting average in SEC play is 228. Theirs is 359. I mean, that number jumped out dramatically at me. So I start trying to find other numbers. I have some little things. I show my age a lot with some of the numbers I look at, but how about this one? Average with 2 outs. We're hitting 215 in league play. They're hitting 297. 2 out RBIs. Right now we have 28 in league play. They have 58. And it's just those numbers, these are even crazier numbers. In league play, we're hitting 260 against righties. They're hitting 303. So you say, okay, then we'll throw our lefties. We're hitting 243 versus lefties. They're hitting 355 versus lefties in league play. So, I mean, this is how do you get over those one-run games? That's going to be the key, is the two-out, just those opportunities you get. As I told people last week, you knew you were going to strike out against that Arkansas pitching staff. They were too good. And you probably will against this one, but take advantage of those RBI situations when you have runners in scoring position. The little at-bats to me are when there's a runner at third in about the second inning and the infield's back, got to hit a ground ball. Get that run that nobody really stands up and cheers when you do that, but you can't strike out in that opportunity, or you can't pop up where the run can't advance. So to beat this Kentucky team this weekend, you're going to really have to be on offensively to those opportunities of runners in scoring positions, two-out base hits, those type things.
Yeah, and Coach, you were already kind of answering it there at the end, but I was about to ask you, I've always thought, and the runners in scoring position average and just kind of at times lack of success, I feel like has been a theme throughout the year to an extent. I've always thought some of that stuff, like if you're a good hitting team, some of that stuff will kind of revert back to the mean. Like if you're a good hitting team, you should be a pretty good team with runners in scoring position. But like you said, there are kind of just specific situations there where you have to have those specific at-bats. So what do you think has maybe, like, I guess the best way to ask it, the teams that you've been around that have been good in those scenarios, what do they do that makes them a little bit better with runners in scoring position versus your just average at-bat with nobody on base?
Well, the biggest thing I learned over the years, and this was my philosophy, and I learned it from getting to work for some really good guys, talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Make sure in your BPs that you're discussing it, that the rounds are RBI rounds, get them over rounds, those type things, because it mentally, it's no different than us knowing at the end of the month we owe our mortgage. At the end of the month you got bills to pay. That's how I've always been taught to attack RBI situations. Don't stay away from it. You talk about it, attack it, and make those guys really proud of how tough they are in those situations. I would always acknowledge at the end of a game who got an RBI, who got a two-out hit, really acknowledge those things. And I think this offense has it in them to do it. We see it in what they've done, and I know a lot of people would kind of make light, but they avoid the getting swept. That's still a big deal, because by doing that, you're still, as we just said, everything is right there in front of you at 9-9, and you've got 12 big-time games left. Even though Missouri is at the bottom of the league right now, we saw Florida get swept there. We've seen Missouri now win a game on weekends, so they're going to be a huge series there. But I just think right now for this offense, really attack that. Don't shy from it. Don't be afraid to talk about it. The runners in scoring position, those are big opportunities that we have to take advantage of.
Coach, last one for you here. Got right at 2 minutes. Speaking of hitting, looking at this Kentucky pitching staff, they have the fewest amount of strikeouts in the SEC, but also have the second lowest batting average allowed. So that tells me that they're allowing guys to make contact, but the teams are struggling to get on base against them. From a coaching standpoint, how do you attack a pitching staff that presents that kind of challenge to you?
Well, I think the biggest reason, and you're right, as much as I just talked about their hitting, their pitching is right there, only allowing opponents to hit 212 in league play. They play really good defense. They're fielding 983 in league play. Again, fielding better in league play than they were in their overall stats. So I think the biggest thing this weekend, it's really going to be having to be ready early. I think this pitching staff's going to throw you strikes. I do not think there's a dominant a pitching staff as we've seen with Arkansas and maybe even with A&M at times on the mound. But we're going to have to be ready. They don't really give you free stuff. I mean, they've only hit 50 guys all year, so it's not like they're leading the league in hitting guys. They don't walk guys. So the biggest thing right now is, can we be ready with these strikes early on to put the ball in play, hopefully here. And I'm so excited we're playing them here, not there, because you get an opportunity to have your field and your fans take advantage of this home crowd this weekend, put some pressure on this Kentucky team early in the games.
It's going to be another big series out at Founders Park. We appreciate your time, Coach, and hopefully this time next week we're talking about a series victory and heading on the road to a tough challenge in Missouri next weekend.
Guys, I always enjoy it. Thank you all for having me and look forward, and I'm going to be fingers crossed we're doing that same thing next week.
Absolutely. Appreciate it as always, Coach. And a quick reminder as well, you can always go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. $1,000 in the pot as they take on Kentucky coming up. First pitch tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 6:45. We'll come back, wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, a commitment for the 2026 class coming in for the Gamecocks yesterday. It's a pretty big one. With that next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on the game. Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, West Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you for a couple more minutes here. Another reminder, the craft beer card is back. You can spend $30 a brewery at 12 different craft beer locations. It's a $360 value, all yours for just $79. Go online to 1075thegame.com and click on Sweet Deals to purchase the craft beer card. As we wrap up today's show, news coming out yesterday and a lot of news happening lately on the recruiting front for the Gamecocks. A big commitment for the 2026 class for the Gamecocks as they get a commitment from four-star linebacker out of Georgia, Rodney Colton, as the 2026 class continues to grow now.
Hey, that thing's up there right now. It's very, very early, but the early team rankings, South Carolina going to be way up there once it actually starts to be far enough along that those things count and matter. I think if you look at their ranking score right now on 3, it's weird how it does it when there's not much data yet. But South Carolina has like the 3rd highest score on there so far in the country as of yesterday. And you got 2 4-star commits. Obviously, Landon Duckworth, 4-star quarterback, is committed as well, has been for some time now, was back on campus for the spring game. And adding Rodney Colton, who by On3's rankings is the number 2 linebacker in the country, just a big-time player, flies around, will hit you, has all the big offers so far. And, Chris, I thought it was fascinating when you talked to him after he got the offer, because he just got offered this weekend. He's like, yeah, I grew up, I was watching J.C. Horn, I was watching Cam Smith, and he's like, lately I've been watching Wendell Gregory's film, and I've been watching Dylan Stewart because I'm going to be doing a little bit of pass rush this year. And so, did he play cornerback when he was younger and smaller? I'm guessing maybe, or he just liked JC being a Georgia guy. But that was an interesting sign that he's been watching South Carolina guys and tuning his game around them.
Yeah, after I talked to him, had no clue, obviously, he was going to go ahead and commit, but you got the sense right after the spring game, like, this is a guy that South Carolina's going to be in the game with, because what you just said, Wes, but also he's like, hey, I've been wanting to South Carolina, because he got offered at the spring game when he visited. It's like, hey, I've been wanting a Gamecock offer since I was a freshman in high school, and you're going, I got a kid from Noonan, Georgia that, and so sometimes in recruiting, you need a little bit of good fortune, honestly. You need to have, for example, you think about the golden era of South Carolina football, it just so happened that they had a lot of really big-time talents come through the state. Like the 2008, 9, 10, 11 classes were loaded with talent, and South Carolina was able to do really well keeping them home. But if they weren't born in South Carolina and played in high school, maybe you don't get as many. Here you got a guy in Rodney Colton who wanted an offer, and he's got a nice offer list. He's a big-time recruit, but he wanted to play for South Carolina. Now, you still got to get him on campus. You still got to do a good job recruiting him. You'll probably have to continue to do a good job recruiting him because you got a runway here. But you had some good fortune there, and then you were able to get him committed. And so really, really nice early pickup for them.
Well, I don't think that's something that can be overstated. And again, sounds like he wanted a Gamecock offer, something that had been sought after for a long time. But getting a guy out of the state of Georgia offered him. Auburn seemed to be pretty hot on his trail well. And again, you still have time for these programs to continue to pursue after him. So it's not a done deal until he puts pen to paper. But being able to go in there in the state of Georgia and get a guy out of their backyard is pretty cool.
I think it's a good sign that he already had the Georgia offer and committed to South Carolina. It would be one thing if Georgia was doing it's an in-state guy and they're just waiting to offer. And then you would always, if you're South Carolina, you'd always be going, well, once Georgia offers, what would that mean, frankly? And so he's already had the offer. He's already had the Auburn offer. Those are the top 2. And so naturally, fans are going to be like, well, hey, it's going to be hard to hold on to him. I think, yes, that's going to be the case anytime you're going up against Georgia with a Georgia prospect. It is going to be tough to hold on to him, but I think it does set up probably better than people think for them to hold on to this kid.
I got to close with this. I just saw this on Twitter. It's been no secret. RG3 has been very high on Spencer Rattler. Have you guys seen what he tweeted out earlier this morning? You guys Dragon Ball Z fans at all? Would you get the reference if I make it?
I would not
I
get.
might get it.
I
I,
would
know
not
what
get
that is.
1
generally.
second of the reference.
And I'll show you the picture after I'm done reading it. He says, in the Dragon Ball Z NFL Draft Project, Spencer Rattler is Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan, confident and merciless. Their ability will wow you, but their story got thrown off course at some point when they let go of what's holding them back. Watch out or they will smoke you. And he even has the graphic of him wearing Spencer Rattler's jersey at South Carolina. RG3 loves him some Spencer Rattler, as well as Xavier Leggett, too.
As well as some Dragon Ball Z.
Apparently.
appears.
Didn't get the reference, but that's a cool graphic.
That is pretty cool. So RG3 excited to see where Rattler ends up going.
Didn't get the reference, but to confirm, that is a good thing, right?
That is a good thing, yes. And that'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Coming up next is the halftime show. Myself and Terry Ford coming up next right here on The Game.
All right, if you are interested in leveling up your audiovisual setup at your home or even at your business, consider contacting our friends at Integrated Media. Michael, Nathan, and their team have been out to my home. They've been out to Wes Mitchell's home. They've been out to a lot of